Hey, welcome to Ike's Vintage Tech. Now, if you're following along, this is episode 2 of the Packard Bell Legend 12 CD restoration. So on the last episode, I pretty much tore everything down, made sure it worked ahead of time, and we got it all in front of me here. I got the monitor, the speakers on the side of the monitor, they're going to come off. We've got a very dirty case that's going to be cleaned. The plastic as well is pretty filthy. I'm just going to set that aside here so we can see what else I got going on. The CD-ROM needs some love. The belt inside is pretty much dry rotted. That's going to either have to be replaced, or if I can't source a belt in a timely manner, I'm going to just throw another CD-ROM in here. I've got a few lying around that might be compatible. The motherboard is not too bad. It's, a little messy, but dirty nonetheless, so we are going to wash this. Not going to go with the dishwasher that you might have seen in the thumbnail, but it is going to be hand washed, soft bristle brush, and we're going to get everything here cleaned up, dried up, and then put back together and hopefully running. That's the goal. Assuming everything works, we're going to go ahead and put some more memory in this thing. I don't know if I'm going to have the processor in time before I finish filming this video. Otherwise, we'll keep the 50 megahertz in there. Either way, we are going to start to upgrade this thing slowly as parts come in. Now, if I have everything filmed and the parts are way out, I'll just post a video and we'll do the upgrades in a later video. But as of right now, the goal for this section, episode 2, is to get it all cleaned up, washed, dried back up, and put back together. Stay tuned. Okay, and here we are in the kitchen sink. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the board wet, getting right to it. So the things I'm going to be washing on this particular computer tonight are going to be all the PCBs, the riser card, the sound card, modem, and then the case material itself. The power supply I did open up and it's not so bad. So I'm just going to vacuum that out and give it a good once over with a rag and dust it out, and that's all I'm going to do with that. So the power supply, it has been spared. The sink, it doesn't need to go in tonight. So let's just start right away, get it wet. Now I've already made sure all the capacitors have been discharged. Basically just touch the ends of them on the back of the board. I also removed all the jumpers so that there's no chance of anything falling off the board going down the drain. The battery here has been removed. I mentioned that in the previous video. I'm going to have to solder on a new connector, and that way I can keep a battery on here. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just getting off all the dust, all the main contaminant, and then just hit it with some regular Dawn dish soap. The spray stuff is really good because it doesn't really it washes off easy, and it doesn't really sit on here like a gel would. So lightly hit all the areas with the brush. Careful not to bend any pins. And you don't really have to scrub hard. This wasn't a smoking house. This wasn't a board from a smoker's house. It's just normal household dust. 30 years of other people's dead skin. So that's one of the reasons I want to clean this up real nice and good. Just get it pristine. And you'll see the end result here when I'm done. It is going to look really good. So this is coming along nicely. Now the other thing I'm going to do once I'm done with this, I'm going to take it out in the garage and I'm going to blow it out with hot, warm air from my shop vac. The exhaust of my shop vac starts spitting out warm air after it's been on for a few minutes. And that's how long it's going to take to dry all these off. So I'm going to hit it with the warm air out of the shop vac. And that's going to force any of the excess water out of the pinholes, the ports, all those little spots. Now after this is done, I am then going to hit all the sockets and electrical contacts with some deoxit after it's all dried out, just to make sure that everything has clean, non-corroded contacts. And that's going to work great for me. So that's the front side. Back side is even quicker because there's no components on the back. So this I can just do a once over real quick. And that's everything for that first board. Now I did inspect all the capacitors. Everything looks good as far as those go. I don't see any leakage. I don't see any bulging. Now you see here, yes, it's wet and it's going to be a little shiny, but it is much cleaner than it was prior. Now the little paper label on the CPU socket is starting to peel off. Now that that sticker's off, it reveals socket 3, which you should already know if you're doing this. But when I'm going to be shopping for an upgraded CPU, I'll just have to make sure it's socket 3. And obviously follow the motherboard's manual to see what processors are compatible with it. Set that aside for now over there and get the next part. Alright, so now I got the riser card. This is fairly clean. You can tell which direction was up because all the dust had settled on the tops of those ISA slots. ISA. So a quick bath. Hit it with some soap and get to work. Now the sound card here does have some paper stickers over a couple of the ICs, so I'm going to be a little gentle on that. I'm not going to really go to town on this. It's not that dirty, but I do want to get it all cleaned out. It is pretty scuzzy right there. I'm going to avoid scrubbing the paper stickers just to keep those intact. Not that it really matters. It's probably hiding what the actual chipset is. Now I did forget to take the jumper off there. Nothing popped out, so we're safe there. And here we have the modem. Now this cable is soldered on, and I'm going to be averting the water away from this. It's a very short cable, but I just don't want to take a chance of having the water wick up in there, so I'm going to do my best to keep water away from that. Alright, so that's all the PCBs that are in the computer there. Now I'm going to get to the case stuff. Alright, this is the big part here. So I'm going to use both sides of the sink. I'm going to move these cards away. Now this is a little harder for me because it's bigger than my sink. And yes, I could have just wiped it down. But in my experience, you don't get a good clean out of these things when you just wipe them down when they have so much crud in them to begin with. You just turn the water on a low pressure so it doesn't oversplash and carefully rotate it around all the parts. Get everything nice and clean. Hit it with some soap. Now for this, because it's just standard metal, I'm just going to be using a standard kitchen sponge. Obviously, I won't be reusing this on my dishes. Be careful not to cut yourself. Now, this case is fairly good with rounded edges, but I am getting into spots that were not meant for fingers to be in to begin with. So you definitely want to be careful. Scrub lightly. Now, you don't want this just to air dry, because it will rust. This case has zero rust on it, so if it starts to rust from here, it's my fault. There we go, it fits in there like that. So I'm going to grab the sink hose and just spray it down good. So what I will do is I'm going to wipe this down really good, and if there's room, it'll go in the oven. If not, I will just put it in a well-ventilated area after completely blowing it off with a shop vac, making sure that it is as dry as I could possibly get it. I do not want any excess water left Here's the upper half of the case. This one's not so bad. It's a little smaller. Now this is all stuff that's hidden from sight. You'd never see it, but you'd know it's there. Now here we have the power supply cover and the drive bay and the crud I'm getting out of here. Now, like I said, the rest of the power supply isn't too bad. It is dusty, but since it's not a smoker's computer, it's not like a oily, greasy dust. It's just a dust. So I'll get that covered with the vacuum pretty much, blow it all out, and that should be good for the power supply. Now here is that power supply. Now as you can see, it is pretty cruddy. Let's see if the camera will focus on that. There we go. As you can see, it is pretty cruddy, but the vacuum will take care of that. It's not terrible. So I'm just going to set that aside. All the capacitors are good though. Now here's the parts that are going to be most visible to anyone seeing the computer, aside from the brace bar. So standard wash with this as well. Just get everything wet, set it on the other side, and continue along the way. Now there are a few scuff marks on here. I'm just using the rough side of the sponge, and that seems to be doing the trick. Now if there was anything really bad, I do have a magic eraser. So I don't want to use that over the whole thing. I want to very sparingly use that if I have to. Only because it tends to shine up or dull. It'll shine up the dull stuff. It'll dull the shiny stuff. So you don't want to go over that too much with a magic eraser. Like there's a little black spot right there. Let's see if I can lightly hit that up. Now I am ever so lightly going over this. I'm not putting much force at all. And because I hit it in a little spot there, I'm just going to evenly go across it. So that way that little mark isn't shinier or duller than the rest of it. So let's go ahead and rinse that off. That's about as good as it's going to get. Now, I might be able to hit that with a little pencil eraser. I don't even know if the camera picks it up, but there's a tiny little dark spot right there. So I might be able to hit that with a pencil eraser. In fact, yeah, there's a little paint scuff there too. So I might be able to hit that with a pencil eraser, and that might take off some of that section there that is scuffed up. Now this side was a little dirtier because that's where the ventilation comes through. The power button is also pretty cruddy because that's everyone's dirty finger touching it. Now this is the front facing part of the whole computer. So this is going to be the most visible if you screw anything up or leave it dirty. So you definitely want to make sure that the front is as clean as you can get it. Get around those drive bays because that's where a lot of air gets sucked into. Now this is a very thin piece of plastic, so I got to be careful with this. And in the fins there, I'm going to hit that with a brush because those are definitely holding some dirt in. This is really dirty. So this is actually coming off really good. A lot of crud on there. And it looks like my CD sticker stayed intact, as did the color-coded I/O sticker. So that's a good sign. Now that's looking great. Little black scuff right there. I'll see if I can get that off. So that is not coming off at all, that little black spot, like the others. So possibly a pencil eraser, we'll see. Gonna hit the inside of that button with the brush to get the inside indentations there. That looks a lot better. Now there is a little spring in there, and I could probably pop this out. I'm just going to dry it out really good with the shop vac. I don't want to take a chance of breaking that plastic because it is a power button. You tend to use it a lot. Now the top of the case I was saving for last. This is where you're going to see the most surface area of the computer, so you want to make sure this is as clean as you can get it. There's a couple small gouges, nothing serious. It's overall clean. No broken plastic. I'll take a couple scratches over broken plastic any day. Now that definitely seems like it's making a difference. That actually had like a film on the inside that was built up over the years. So that's nice to see that just wash right off. Sponge is getting a little chewed up as well. That's fine. Wasn't going to be using it for anything food related anyways. Alright, so the magic eraser is doing a good job here. I don't believe it's harming the plastic from what I can tell. Obviously we'll find out when it dries. But it's definitely cleaning it up, and I can see yellow crud just dripping off of it. Looks like a spill of some sort on the side there. Probably somebody's Coke can spilled 25 years ago. Now, any further cleaning of this plastic, I'll probably end up trying when it's dry with either like 409, isopropyl alcohol, anything that might have better luck with some of those black scuff marks. That is night and day difference from what it was earlier. And that is all the parts. So from here, I'm going to go to the shop vac. I'm going to dry everything off. I'm not going to bother recording that. You're not going to be able to hear anything. Just use your imagination. Fast air blowing water off. There you go. So, but this is a lot better. Once I do that, they're going to go in the oven, all the electronic parts. And by tomorrow, it'll be ready to put back together. And here's a quick view of the cards after being completely air dried. I did forget to mention you run them over with some isopropyl alcohol, the 99% stuff. That gets more of the water out, and then you hit it with the air, and that really does everything. You can also do distilled water and then isopropyl. It really depends on your water and how hard it is. If you have hard water, follow up with distilled water and then use the alcohol. But now I'm at the point where I'm going to put it in the oven at 170 degrees. That's the lowest my oven goes. And I'm going to leave it in there for about an hour and a half. And then after that, let it air cool outside the oven so that it has nice dry air to cool off in, and anything will evaporate. So I'll see you on the bench. All right, we're back after the wash. I was able to get everything cleaned up really well, followed up with distilled water and then isopropyl alcohol. After all that, I took it out to my garage and blew it off with my shop vac. Got all the moisture off to the best of my ability. And then I put it in the oven at 170 degrees for about an hour and a half. That's the lowest setting my oven will go to. It doesn't damage the components at all. 170 is not hot when you consider when these things go through a solder flow. It's like 500-600 degrees. So nothing was damaged as far as I can tell. I did a full restore on the CD-ROM. I posted that video just the other day, so if you're interested in that, look it up. It's more of an informational video than it is an entertaining video. So I mainly made that so that if anyone else has the same CD-ROM, they can go back and use some of the tips I gave to get theirs repaired. Floppy drive, I just cleaned, standard cleaning on that. Monitor, I gave a full wipe down. I didn't really take this apart. There's nothing damaged on it as far as I can tell. It works. No odd odors or smells coming out of it, so that's good. I got all the plastic and metal bits right here. I'm going to go ahead and start putting these together, and then we'll start putting the components back inside. All right, so I just put the top plastic piece on. As you can tell, it's a lot cleaner than it was the other day. I couldn't get every little imperfection off, but it is a lot better, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to get the rest on. Got the little side trim on as well. I did find out this week that they made these in different colors, so if any of you have those lying around, let me know. Next, I'm going to put on the front panel LEDs and reset switch. That feeds right through here. Okay, once that's on, you can put your little fan cover back on that I'm not going to be using at the moment. Now I can put the front cover on. Now with this, it cleaned up really well. There's a very small blemish right on the front here. I couldn't get rid of it. I didn't want to scrub any harder because it was going to start smoothing out, and then the rest of the finish wouldn't match. So I'm just going to live with it. If you've ever done drywall, you know you could do a perfect job, but you know where your imperfections are. Now that I got that on, I can go ahead and put this front trim on. Now this was the hardest to get off. I'm really hoping it's not as hard to get back on. Okay. So that was a lot easier to get on than it was to get off. So the next time I do this in about 20 years, I'll try to remember how to do that. At least I can refer back to my video. So there we see the front. It's starting to come together. I'm getting real happy about this so far. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting the motherboard in and all the internal components. Now before I put the motherboard in, I do want to go over the battery real quick. I was able to solder on a replaceable battery retainer. I got like a 12-pack off Amazon for $9. And then I got BR1225 battery. Now that's the original battery that was in here, except it had the leads on that were soldered onto the board. This method, it wasn't quite perfect. The holes on the motherboard were 10 millimeters apart. The posts on the battery holder were 8 millimeters. So what I ended up doing is I sliced a very small hole where the hole would have been, and I took the bottom of the contact and lifted it out of its current position, put it back in that position, and then with my soldering iron I made it hot enough to melt back into the plastic. At that point it was in the perfect position. I'm going to post pictures here in the video so that you see before I put the battery in what it looks like. And it's on there good. It's perfect connection. I made sure I didn't short anything out. The battery holder sits nice and firm. It doesn't cover any other like capacitors or other components. So it's exactly what you want. Now you could have done an external battery on this. There's jumpers for that. I wanted this to be nice and original as far as I could, but you know, with a little bit more common sense when it comes to actually replacing the battery. If I left this thing on a shelf unplugged for the next year, it'd be dead when I get there. So I don't know why computer companies back then didn't see that as a possibility, especially if they had, you know, stock that sat in the shelves for a while. So I'm going to put the board in I/O first and just make sure everything lines up. At that point, I'm going to start putting screws in. Now, when I put these screws in, I always do like a crisscross or star pattern, just something to keep it from being like all one end. It's force of habit, but you can do it however you like as long as you get them all in there and there's nothing that you're forcing. Okay, so I put this modem back in too soon. I forgot that I covered a screw hole. So don't do that. Okay, now that that screw is in place, I can put the modem where it belongs. Okay, remember when I said I was going to take this apart in 20, 30 years? Well, I got to take the front cover back off because I forgot the power supply switch screws in from the front. Great. Okay, so that came off real easy that time. At least now I know. Power supply switch is back in, so now I can put it together real quick. Now, there is one thing I'm upgrading right now. I'm going to do another video with upgrades on this thing, but I do have 64 meg of RAM. I'm really hoping it's not EDO. I don't really know what it is. I just know it's 32 meg of 72 pin. So there is a jumper on here that you need to move, or close the jumper actually. Right now it's open, and that's J37. So when you change J37 from open to closed, it bypasses the RAM on the board and you use onboard RAM. So if you have anything 64 meg, you have to do that. Now, if I had 32 meg, like 216s, I could still keep the 4 meg on there and you'd have, 36 meg, simple math. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I'll take it back out and it'll be part of a later upgrade video. But I believe this should work. Now this uses the plastic SIM slots, which scares the bejesus out of me because if it snaps, good luck repairing it. There we go. So I got the RAM in. Now, I'm having a real hard time finding cache memory. There are several chips that you need. The one I can't find is the 64 by 1 15 nanosecond chip. There's 150 nanosecond chips available, but that's not going to work because that's 10 times slower than it needs to be. So I need the 15 nanosecond 64 by 1, and then off the top of my head, I can't remember the others, but there's several chips that need to go in here if I want to max out a 486. If I put a Pentium overdrive in here, you don't need it because then it uses the cache that's on the processor. So that option's still up in the air. I really want to lean towards keeping this a 486 though. So I'm going to be on the hunt for that cache. That'll be the next video, is the full upgrade of this thing, but I can't do it until I have all the parts. Now that I got it this far, let's put in the ISA riser card. Now I also couldn't find an ISA PCI riser that would fit this form factor. So basically what I've seen on the board here is it looks like there's 2 PCI slots. At least that's what it looks like. And I just can't find any Packard Bell riser cards that match that format. I'm sure they exist. I found old forum posts from like the 90s where people did upgrade their systems. I just can't find the part. That's the problem with a lot of these Packard Bells, is the information just isn't there. It's pretty sparse online. There are communities out there, but there were so many variations of so many different Packard Bells. Even with the same model number back in the day, they were regional almost, at least from what I can tell, where if you had a specific model on the East Coast, it might be a different case, it might be different components back on the West Coast, and yada, yada, yada. So when a company does that, it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. So that slides right in. Another thing I did do after the wash was every single socket, RAM socket, ISA slots, everything, I put deoxit in. That should really help for any issues I might have in the future. It just takes any moisture that was in there, any corrosion, and cleans it up and makes good contact when you put your cards in. So now that that is in, I can reach down here and we can put this in. This slots in on the front. It should slot right over the ISA riser so that you get nice tight fit there with no movement. Now, I said it in the last video, I'm real impressed with the build quality of this case for the day. Like I said back then, I've seen some really awful computers, and this case is pretty nice. A lot of rounded edges, fairly well made. So I'm going to put this in what I believe is the same slot. I'm going to check my phone real quick, see if I took a picture of where that riser or the sound card was. So the sound card was in the top slot, so I'm just going to put it back in the top slot, just in case there's any conflicts. I don't want any of that trouble. So in the future, if I get an ISA video card in this thing, I'm going to just use one of the extra available slots. And while I got them, I'm going to put the 3 ISA slot covers back in as well. Okay, so now I'm going to refer to my phone a little bit more to make sure I got all the front panel pins correct. Pretty simple. The photo makes it much easier. Okay, that's easy enough. Throw in the floppy disk. And then the CD-ROM should also just fall into place. Okay, once you get your drives in here, I'm still going to put the hard drive in next. Now, I did have to make a quick run for some more screws because I realized I was running out of screws because this didn't come with a hard drive. So those screws are missing, obviously. Plus the screws for the back were also missing. Now, one thing I've noticed with this Packard Bell is that all the screws, for the most part, are the fine thread M3 screws and not your standard coarse thread screws. So that was a little harder to find in my bag of screws than all the others, but I had a few. Alright, so now that I got the floppy drive, the hard drive, and the CD-ROM installed, I'm going to slide it into the case and hopefully everything lines up great. Okay, that looks great. I'm going to go ahead and screw that in nice and tight. And if I recall, I think there's a screw on the other side here. Okay, there's a screw on this side right here. And if you have it lined up right, if you didn't misalign anything on the inside here. It should just connect. All right, now I can put the back plastic back on. Now, one thing I did find out during this whole process is that these service stickers don't mean anything. It was for when it was under warranty. If you had to bring it in for service, that's how they looked up the system. Now, the hard drive code that I need to restore the software, unfortunately, was on the hard drive, which is gone. Luckily, with some help on Facebook from a gentleman named Stephen Gray, he was in the Vintage Computer Club on Facebook, and he was a huge help. I can't thank you enough, man. If you're watching this, thank you. This has made my life so much easier with his help. I was able to get the format code we believe I need. We're going to find out when we get that far. And hopefully that just works. We'll find out. Okay, another gun jumped. I shouldn't have screwed the power supply in until I put the plastic on. So, real quick fix. Okay, so the next step, now that I have all the computer back together, is to put the cables in. Okay, so this is why I took pictures, so it's easy to find out where the pin number 1 is and all that stuff, because all these are not keyed. Okay, I've got all the cables in except one. That modem cable that was cut, I didn't have the gumption to solder it together yet. So it's on my to-do list. So it's a 99% restored today. So, but believe me, I'm not going to be using it anytime soon. So I'm just going to set that one aside for now. Let's get the case on, and we'll do some fingers crossed here in a second. Okay, it is all together, I believe. Let's make sure it's lined up. And throw some screws in it. Okay, so here we are in all its glory. Little scuffed up on the top still, but overall fairly clean. Definitely compared to what it did look like just a mere week ago. So there's the back side. This side over here, and back to the front. So the next steps are to get the monitor attached, power attached, and fingers crossed. Wish me luck. All right, here we are. Moment of truth. I did the cardinal sin of closing it up before testing it. Let's hope everything works. We're watching it together. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and set the time, all that stuff. Okay, so everything seems to work. I did forget to plug in the floppy drive power. So yeah, this will be quick. Okay, I believe I got my problem sorted out. The battery jumper to set it to internal battery had to be added. And the floppy drive is plugged in, so let's see what happens. Now I do have the boot floppy and the CD-ROM to install, so let's get that started. And it is picking up the extra RAM, so that's also a really good sign. So because the battery wasn't connected, I have to set the time again. It'll be real quick. All right, little trial and error. Had a bad boot disk. Found another image, got it working. So I got everything set. Hard drive is formatted. We should see it booting up shortly here into the restoration software, and hopefully it'll work this time. All right, so right now it's starting the recovery. It is looking for the recovery key that is on the hard drive. The hard drive has been F-disked, formatted, completely erased, so that key's not going to be there. So I'm going to have to enter the key. So here we go. Here's the beginning of the GUI. So basically asking if you're unsure what you're doing, don't do it, quit. We're going to continue. Startup files were not found on the disk, obviously. Select F1 from the next menu to restore them. So this being a 2x CD-ROM on a very slow computer, this might take a while. So we're going to jump cut, and I'll see you in the next step. All right, after many, many painful hours, I got it working. So what happened after I last saw you was I hit start on the restore and the CD-ROM wouldn't spin up. So the thing works, you know, mechanically. It's a cup holder basically at this point. It does not spin up. Nothing I could do to get it to work worked. And it was starting to get late. I threw an IDE CD-ROM in there, a tappy, and the drivers wouldn't load. The boot disk I had didn't have room for the drivers, so I kind of just gave up the towel and said I'll finish it later. So I messaged my findings to Stephen Gray. I mentioned him earlier. He's been a huge help in this. Thank you again. Just said, hey, you know, this is what I've run into so far, and I planned on, you know, editing a boot disk and getting it working later. And without asking, he's like, hey, here, I made this. He just made me a boot disk off the original with the updated driver and updated autoexec.bat and config.sys files. I didn't ask for that, but he was a huge help in this. And within no time, it was up and running. So now it had a 2x CD-ROM. I was able to find a newer CD-ROM that fit the aesthetic at least. It still has a little volume knob on it, same color beige, give or take. And now it's a 48x CD-ROM in this old thing, which is crazy fast for this. It'll never hit that potential. But I was able to load the entire thing up really quick. After that, the only hiccup I ran into was now that it had the factory install imaged on the drive, it was looking for this CD-ROM. I had to delete this out of the autoexec.bat and config.sys files on the C drive, update it to point towards the Oak CD-ROM driver that we installed, and then it works. So without further ado, here we go. So here we are at boot. It took like 45 seconds, give or take. It goes right into Packard Bell Navigator, and it is exactly what I had as a kid. This is exactly how I remember it. All Welcome to Packard Bell's Navigator. Speakers work. Welcome to the main menu of Navigator, the easy way to get to know and use your Packard Bell computer. Explore the functions of Navigator by using the mouse or the tab or arrow keys on your keyboard. Okay, so a little bit of history lesson here. Back in the 90s, this was somebody's first computer. Never had any experience on a computer prior to like playing the Oregon Trail on an Apple IIe or their IBM system at work that was literally just text and numbers. It didn't have a GUI. So for a lot of people, this was their first time using a computer in the modern age. So what Packard Bell did, and a lot of other companies like Microsoft Bob, I believe, is another one. There's a few others. They put an overlay over Windows 3.11 or Windows in general. And what it did was it was training wheels. It was, they had software that you could install, Learning Center, Workspace to get your work on. KidSpace was the one I spent a lot of time in. And you would basically just have a different GUI. It was dumbed down, for lack of a better term. And it was something that caught on because people didn't know how to use a computer. As people's skill set broadened, this became less useful for many people, and they just used Windows as it was intended to be used. And then when Windows 95 came out, there was absolutely no reason to go back to this anymore, even though Packard Bell tried. So we can go to KidSpace here real quick. This is all the memories. A little jack-in-the-box pops out, tells you how to use it.
Hello and welcome to KidSpace. This is the fun place to work and play. Keep your software in the bookcase. Put all your games and stuff on the shelf. The bottom drawer lets Mom and Dad organize the room. To start your software, drag things from the shelves to where I'm standing.
All right.
Pull your files and letters in the dresser drawers.
All right, we get it. All right, so you had your games up here. A little puzzle game, Minesweeper. I forget what that is. Yeah, Solitaire, because every kid loves Solitaire. Well, I did. Yeah, we've got Ski Free. Now, this is the game that I loved. Little animation there. Let's see if it works. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, so that is a very small space you got to drag it to. So I think today, if you just drug it out there anywhere off the shelf, it would just be put into use. Oh, missed it. Yep, I'm bad. I'll say it every time. Playing at like a 60-degree angle here, I'm like on the edge. That's my excuse for sucking at games. So, and then I guess we're expected to put it back on the shelf because that's what kids would do. I guarantee these icons were everywhere. So yeah, calculator, looks like WordPad or something to that effect. Maybe just Notepad. But yeah, this was my first experience on a modern computer. So before this, I had a Color Computer 3 and Apple IIe at school. So yeah, this was my first hands-on experience, regular hands-on experience over time with a modern computer, with a CD-ROM, with sound, games like Mega Race and the like. The encyclopedia that was on here, that was before you could just go on the internet and Google things. So to have an Encarta encyclopedia, to have all this information on a book of CDs, it was great. It was amazing because I did grow up with actual physical books for encyclopedias, and to have everything just typed in and find it immediately, that was amazing. Now, I don't think the encyclopedia CD that we had, if you printed it out, I don't think it would fill an entire library shelf like the one we had, but it was still a lot of information, and supposedly you'd update it every year. So unlike encyclopedias, unless you want to spend however much they cost, yeah, this was the beginning of the information age. It had Prodigy Internet pre-installed. A lot of times, like AOL became pre-installed in these computers, but Packard Bell and Prodigy had a deal where you would have it pre-installed, the software's already on there, and you'd set up your account and get online. So in 1994, I was on the internet for the first time. Dial-up, it was incredibly slow. Arguing with strangers in chat rooms or BBSs or whatever they were back then. And yeah, getting my dad in trouble with Prodigy because I decided to be a snot-nosed 14-year-old kid and argue with people on the internet, not knowing that all this stuff was logged under his screen name. So, the memories. But yeah, this whole package here is exactly why I love getting into the vintage machines here, because it reminds me of my childhood. And I'm getting old. I got my own kids now. And of course, I want them to experience a little bit of this. My goal is to have these all set up once I move into the garage fully with the whole computer setup here. And yeah, I want my kids to use these along with newer technology. I don't want them to be completely choked from what's new. But I want them to understand and appreciate some of the old stuff. Maybe they'll like it. Maybe they'll be like, whatever, Dad. Take your old computers out of here. But at least it's something I can share with them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this brought up some memories for you as well. Now, there will be a part 3. I am going to be upgrading the cache, the processor, video card, all that stuff. The only problem is the cache is very hard to find. There's 3 different chips that you install in this thing, and one of the chips I just can't find at the moment. I'm going to keep digging. I'll find it. But if any of you guys have a source for 15 nanosecond 64 by 1 memory, cache memory, I could use it. other than that, this thing is good to go. Once I do get those upgrade components available, I'll make the third and final video on this machine here, and I'm sure I'll have other uses. I'll see what other operating systems I can throw on here, see how far I can max it out. I am not going to go with the Pentium Overdrive, I decided, unless I absolutely can't get the cache. I do want to keep it 486. I'll take this as a concession, that upgraded CD-ROM, as the only thing non-original out of this thing. I do want to keep it 486 if possible. So I hope you like the video. I hope you like the channel. I'm always trying to get new ideas. Leave comments down below. Engage the channel. Let me know what you guys want to see. I am open to all suggestions. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that nonsense. Thank you very much. Take care.